that only 17% of borrowers go back to the same lender.
What's called the dairy button, big red button that I hit.
Hey, remember that?
Right?
And, you know, oh yeah, I love
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Laugh, Lend, and Eat the podcast, brought to you by First Option Mortgage and One Good One Recruiting. So we are delighted today to have a very young guest. Actually, I was just talking to him before the show started, and you know, I always like to see these age discrepancies between my average age that I'm at right now versus the younger generation. It's incredible to see and meet Michael McAllister of Empower LOs. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
No, man, I appreciate you coming on, brother. So it's always good to learn and talk to people and see what they're doing and what's working and really understand, you know what I mean? Because to me, you know, we'll just dive right into it, right? I mean, the reality is I'll be 55 in June. And I keep talking about my age on this podcast because obviously I'm sensitive to it. So I figure if I throw out there first, then you guys can F with me on it, right? But the way I look at it is like, I've now surpassed the average age of the average mortgage banker, right? It's been like 52 or 53 since I got in the business 28 years ago.
All right.
And so when I see young people like you coming on into the industry, I love that because it means that the industry is still relevant. It's still needed. And then we can learn how you're doing it. So the next generation of how they see loans and that kind of stuff. So I love that, man. It's a great opportunity to learn. But let's talk about you. Enough about me, Michael. You got in the business when you were 21 years old, right?
Right.
Now, I asked this question to a lot of people, and I want you to try to see if you can surprise me today.
Okay.
I'm going to guess that as a 9-year-old kid, you grew up and you wanted to be a loan officer. Like that was your dream job.
You bet. Fifth grade career fair. I had the trifold and everying. The URLA, the 1003 was
There you
sitting
go.
out.
Yeah. The old Good Faith Estimate back in those days.
No. I think like most people that probably got into the mortgage business as a kid, for me, I just knew that I wanted to make money. I just knew that I wanted to crush it, whatever I was doing. I think seventh grade, it was an anesthesiologist because it was the highest average salary on the list of careers that they showed me. So that's the one I picked.
Yeah. So what made you get in the mortgage business at the young age of 21? Because I think I was 24. I think I was 24. Can't remember anymore. So, I mean, what made you get in the business?
Yeah, I was actually selling cars at the time, and down in San Diego, I was living down there, and lots of talent in the area. I ended up selling a car to I can't remember where he's at. Last I checked, he was a top executive at AAG, but at the time, Jesse Allen was one of the top sales executives at Bank of America, and I ended up selling a car to him, and they were backed up in finance, so we were sitting there BSing for 2-3 hours, and he's talking to me about their initiative at Bank of America where they're trying to cross sell, essentially, right? They're trying to mimic Wells Fargo at the time was really well known for their cross selling, and we just kind of dove into it. I've always been super interested in business and held conversations with people at a higher level than I should.
No, it's good.
And so ended up getting a call from him a couple months later saying that he'd been thinking about me and wanted to offer me a job as a loan officer, and the rest is history.
Wow. So you took the offer right away. You didn't think about it. You didn't have to think about it, or you thought about it for a while, or I mean,
I was in the car business, man. I was dying every single day, single day. Yeah. The money was great, but being able to sleep at night, like knowing that I'm doing well by people is something I realized at that age that there's no price tag on it, and it didn't matter. It took me probably 3 years of being a loan officer before I made what I was making in the car business when I left the industry. But I have a hard time going to sleep at night knowing the more money I make, the more I'm screwing somebody over.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think the car business is a very like indicative of where the mortgage industry is kind of going, where you see companies like Carvana, more online. I mean, I know I purchased something for my wife about 6-7 months ago, and I may have spent 45 minutes with the salesperson because everything was done online.
Yeah.
So even the local dealerships are doing, online business. So you know what the value is. There's really no need to negotiate anymore. At least we think we know what the value is. I'm not sure. Who knows, right?
Right.
So, I mean,
I mean, yeah.
do you think like the car business is kind of like a telltale sign of where the industry is going, our mortgage industry today, where, it's like 7 years ago, car salesmen were needed. Today, they're really not needed.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, when you look at internet marketing specifically, 110%. I mean, the reason that I was able to be successful generating internet leads and identifying what's a quality lead and what's not, and and converting internet leads. Honestly, the reason I was able to was because of my experience doing that in the car business. I was down in San Diego. I was 100% online. Online car sales is very big down there, so it was 100% lead driven, and that's why I had my success. So from an internet marketing standpoint, I would say 110%. um the the idea that we are just as at risk as car salespeople are of being replaced by technology or being replaced
Mhm.
by call center reps in the middle of the country making 15 bucks an hour. I think that we're pretty far away from that idea, honestly, just based on the number of deals that we see every single month, like the creative off the wall deals that loan officers are able to put together for people that deserve to be in a house.
Interesting. Okay. So the need for the retail loan officer model is not going to, it's at least from what you're seeing, is not disappearing anytime soon.
Correct. I mean, I think the more we allow big companies to control all the data and control all of the lead flow,
Mhm.
like we're playing with fire, right? The more likely we are that we're going to reach that point. But I don't think that we're past the point of no return. I don't think that individual LOs can't come in, take control of their own marketing and take control of some lead flow in their market
Mhm.
and continue to demonstrate the value of a retail LO versus a call center, centralized retail or
Yeah.
whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, because when I was watching your videos, it's somewhere I know before I always get ready for the interview, right? So I was watching your video,
Yeah.
and I think you said you didn't like working with realtors in your first year. Like you were like something you made a comment, and I can't remember exactly. So I'm not going to quote you, right? But something where you just didn't feel comfortable, or you didn't like realtors, so you had to find a way around the real estate agent.
Yeah.
So there's two questions in there. First of all, what was it about realtors that you didn't like?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would like, I mean, I could say that I didn't like it, but to be honest with you, if I was successful with it, I probably would have liked it more. I just wasn't
Hey,
that good
listen,
at
that's
it, to be
honest
honest
answer,
with you.
brother. I appreciate it. That's a really honest answer. Good. I
I'm
love
just
that.
like, if you know disc assessment, I'm just like an insanely high D personality, like insanely, and I had like relationship skills are not my strong point.
Okay.
And so what I found was that, like, especially in Idaho, what I would refer to as like a warm market. Now in San Diego, when I was down there, I had more success at Bank of America with realtors than I did at a retail shop here, with realtors here, because it's just such a different culture. Like down there, the hustle is respected,
Right.
and it's it's a lot more. There are a lot more people out there trying to get theirs,
That's a
and
bigger market.
yeah, and the competition is stiffer, etc. Here, it was at the time, anyways, much slower paced, much more relationship driven, and like I said, you brought up the average age of a mortgage professional. Average age of a real estate agent in this market was the same, 50, 51, and I'm
Mhm.
20, 21. Don't own, or well, own my own house, but it's a triplex that I bought. And trying to get people to trust me with their commission checks when they don't, there weren't as many hitters here, et cetera. Like there just wasn't an alignment. And so basically at the end of the day, I what I said, what you probably heard me say, and it is the truth, is that I never have liked the idea that my ability to get business in the mortgage industry
Mhm.
was based on my ability to build relationships with agents versus based on how well I do for my borrowers. I've never liked that. I've always hated
Got
that.
it.
But the truth is if I was successful with it, there's Empower wouldn't exist, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't have ever done internet lead gen probably.
Yeah. See, I was always a guy that like took the realtors out or the builder out, played golf, smoked a cigar, told a couple of dirty jokes, and walked away with a couple of deals, right? And I was
I
always
envy you.
I was always able to pull that off, right? Which is probably why I do a podcast, right? I can talk to people, right? It's like I'm probably the opposite of that D that you're talking about in the
Right.
disc assessment, right?
High I.
Yeah.
Right?
So I mean, to me, it's like I don't mind conversing. Now, I will tell you one thing, and this is, I don't think I've ever said this entire 50 years. I think you're the 53rd episode, by the way, or 54th. I don't think I've ever said this before, so this is really going to shock people. I'm really an introverted person. But I figured out when I got in the sales business that this was at least in 94, where we didn't have the internet, you didn't have Google, you didn't have SEOs, you know what I mean? And I realized like this was part of the business. Like I had to shake hands, I had to kiss the babies, I had to go hug people. Otherwise, I was gonna go broke. I mean, you know what I mean? Because there was just no other way to do it back in those days. Now you could do flyers, but that was a very long and tedious funnel, right? It take forever to get the leads coming in. But so to me, realtors were more of an instant impact. So second thing you said, which was really brilliant, by the way, you know what I mean? So kudos to you. I mean, honestly, I don't want to hop on your age, but at a young age, you really picked up on something here. You said you looked at Quicken and you just said, okay, where are they getting their leads from? And let me just go there. To me, that's like absolutely brilliant, because it's like you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just go where the wheel's going and duplicate it, because they've already done the groundwork for you guys. So talk about that for a second, Michael.
Yeah, so I had actually I had read the 10x rule by Grant Cardone, and I had read that book, and basically what I pulled from it was that I wasn't making the kind of money that I wanted to be making because I was aiming too low. And so when I looked at, I couldn't. 10x was beyond my imagination. It was 100,000 was my income goal. I made 50K in 2016, I think. And so in 2017, I aimed for 300K. And so when I did that, I knew that even if I magically became good at working with realtors, that odds are there wasn't a chance in hell that I wasn't gonna be able to make that kind of money in that short amount of time, because the realtor relationships were just a longer play. And so at this point, I like I said, my mindset was like, okay, like what it was, and it, God, dude, this speaks to like right place, right time, and luck and privilege and whatever, right? Like what it was I was at Wells Fargo when they got second to Quicken Loans in retail, or like in retail lending. I don't remember exactly what it was. But it was like they got second to Quicken Loans as far as the number one volume retail lender in the country.
Okay.
And that was one of the first years that happened, or the second year or something like that. But it was a big deal, and it was talked about a lot. And so, and yet, like I knew that like realtors in our market were rejecting pre-quals with Quicken Loans on the pre-qual. Like I knew that was happening. I had seen it happen. And so, like I said, the mindset at this point was like, okay, how in the hell does this company do it when they literally have people rallying against them in individual markets, and they're able to do this? Like, I just need a piece of that. I don't need the whole thing. I just need a piece of that. And that's kind of what started the search.
So let's dive into that, because that's really the from what I gather with your story, that's the foundation of Empower.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, once you begin to really like go down that rabbit hole with Quicken, you discovered, Facebook is really not what it's all cracked up to be about. SEOs is a place to be, which, in my opinion, I think, once again, I've been on that for the last several years myself, right? And I like the fact that other people aren't on SEOs. And I almost like when I read that about you, I said, do I really want to record this episode and talk about this? Right? Because I mean, supposedly our listener base is about 6,000 people now, right? So that's 6,000 mortgage professionals that are also going to say slam us on the SEOs. But the good news is only 5% actually execute. So that's the good part.
Amen.
So we got 300 people that are coming on board. But so talk about this. Let's go through this. I mean, you figured out, okay, here's the kind of like the engine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how does one go from being a loan officer to saying, I can do this on a much higher level if I had my own company?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the progression, like obviously I had to do it for myself first. I mean, that's just the type of person I am. Not going to sell something that I don't believe in, as you can tell by the car business transition, whatever. Right. So for me, I had to figure it out myself. So when I transitioned away from Wells Fargo, because their compliance department is obviously like this, and I needed to be somewhere that was going to give me a little bit more breathing room. So when I made that transition, the Department of Finance was backed up again. Another like brilliant stroke of luck. The Department of Finance was backed up like 3 months, and I didn't know that. I quit my job as soon as I passed my test. I quit and went over to CMG, and they're like, "What are you doing? You don't have your license yet." And so I literally sat there like no draw, nothing for 3 months, not making any money.
Wow.
And at this point, I had expanded my available credit so that I could have some, what I thought at the time was like freedom to be able to make options, right? Like rather than savings, I just went and applied for as many credit lines as I could. I was up to like 100 grand in credit and like, and zero interest offers out the yin yang. And so I just lived on this stuff and started charging ad spend on it, and got up to like 50 grand in debt, but in this like 5-month period of living and paying for my ads essentially. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it was just reverse engineering. I mean, obviously it didn't work right away. I had to go. I started on Facebook because there was no way for me to tell that Quicken wasn't doing this on Facebook. And then I start generating the leads and getting leads and from taking some Facebook online course or whatever. And I see that these leads are god awful. Well, why?
Yeah.
Well, because you're literally like saying, "Hey, here's a list of houses." Like, what level of intent does that? And then as soon as that thought crossed my mind of intent, like I've had a computer in my room with internet access since I was like 5 years old. Right, my dad was a huge tech guy, so I like Google, and Google came out in like 2000, 2001. And my dad has told me to Google it as an answer to every question I've ever asked him since then. So there was something about that, like
awesome.
seeing Facebook leads and seeing the shitty quality of those leads.
Yeah.
And then remembering my experience in car sales and different lead sources and the different levels of intent that brought me over to Google. And I was like, well, let's just see what happens when I type in, mortgage loan officers in my area or whatever. And then that's when everything was fine, because then I literally could just look at their ad, click on their ad, see their landing page, knock and it was off to the races from there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It took about a year of doing that. It was like 9 months that I made 100K in doing that. Like, so it was, my first 3 months not licensed. The next 9 months I make 100K, and then make a transition, end up firing my assistant while I was having a kid. And there was enough chaos going on that it was like I don't even like doing this shit anymore. Like, I just want to market. Like, I just want to do the marketing. And so it was just like another one of those moments where it's like, all right, well, the timing kind of works out and I've got some more credit cards. So, well, fuck it. Let's just go. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know if I could say that.
No, you can say fuck it all you want. I don't care. Now, let me ask you a question. I mean, because I wrote some notes down while you were doing this, right? Yeah. So you're charging up your credit cards. You quit your job because you passed the test. CMG says, hang tight, brother. You can't hire you, right? You got a wife and all this, or are you single?
No, so I got married while I was down in. I actually got married 2 months after I got in the mortgage business.
So your wife is seeing you go through the basically racking on the debt for both of you two, right? Because she's obligated as well. Should anything go wrong with your theory?
Yeah, right? No, she's ride or die, man. She bet low. Let's just say that she bet low, and it's paying off.
I mean, but at that moment, I mean, it can't be comfortable, right? I mean, I know my wife. I've always been similar to you, but not as aggressive, right? But similar. Like, I'm going to take chances. I'm going to do things. JP freaked out one time when he found that I bought 7 houses at one time, and I never told my wife about them, just to flip them. You know what I mean? And he's like, "You never told your wife?" I said, "No, man, it was just a business deal." You know what I mean?
Well, there you go. So there you go. There's probably the answer to your question right there. You didn't tell her, right?
Right. Is that
That's all we gotta say.
Okay, got it, man. Mom's the word, brother. We make sure she doesn't see this episode.
She knew that the bills were getting paid and we had a roof over our head, and she didn't ask any more questions. Thank God. And it paid off. Like, I very well could have bit her in the ass, obviously.
Yeah.
It paid off.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I also want to talk about failure, because look, you're an entrepreneur type person, right?
Right.
So failure is always around us. And people who are afraid to fail can't do what you did.
Yeah, amen.
Right? Because they can't take $50 worth of credit card debt. You know what I mean? Even if it's got 0% interest, it's still 50 grand.
Right.
And if you have seen Inventing Anna leaked recently on Netflix, I mean, that poor girl had $62,000 that she screwed her friends over on, but that's another story. It's a great story, by the way.
Okay.
Inventing Anna, Netflix, really good.
Inventing Anna. All right.
Yeah. But anyway, so 50,000 is still a large number. So
Yeah.
was failure like ever in your mind, like I could fail?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, obviously everybody's got that voice, right? Everybody's got like what would happen if, or like what is the worst case scenario right now? And like I always have that. I still always have that going. But there's just something that happens when you like decide in your mind that like you're just not going to fail.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? There's just like I struggle to say, like, when you bring up the word failure, instantly my mind starts going, okay, like what failures have I faced? And I can't think of any, because like you just don't fucking stop until you succeed. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, the thoughts definitely cross my mind, but it's never like all the way to fruition of like thinking I'm going to fail or thinking that this is a real possibility.
Yeah.
It's more just like that monkey brain that I'm trying to silence.
No, I mean, and the cool part is I don't even think, and I don't know, man, whether you know this or not, but you're literally quoting or paraphrasing some of the greatest success motivator coaches in the world right now. Like Og Mandino says, as long as I don't stop trying, I can't fail, which is basically what
Yeah.
you just said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is failure is not an option, right? We're going to find
Right.
a way, burn the boats at the beach and figure a way to how to get home.
Yeah. Well,
I
and
mean,
I
these
think
are all things
when you say failure is not an option, I think that like when I think of that, I think it like makes it seem almost like more of a conscious choice than it is. Like failure is not an option, as in like, well, the failure is there, but I'm just not going to choose it.
yeah.
Whereas there's, to me, there was something different, because failure is not an option was like, I don't know if it's like my middle school or high school, was like one of one of my schools, they're saying or whatever. And like I said, I feel something different between failure is not an option and then just like don't stop until it's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Okay, so I'm going to pause it for a second because this is such a great topic. I don't want to get off of it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you know this, but I wrote this book called Falling Forward, right?
Yep.
And it's about me basically losing everything in the 2008 that I had built up, right? But that didn't stop me.
Right.
It was like, okay, I'm down to negative $3,200. That's what I was down to. And it was like somewhere in the 7 digits before, right? And so like within 11 months, you go from that to negative 3,200 in your bank account.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, okay, what do I got to do? What's the right way to rebuild? So failure not being an option is not that failure is not. Some people will say that's a failure, Fab. You failed.
Right.
And I say, no, I learned what not to do next time.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's not a failure. It's more of like, okay, this is when I do this next time, I'm going to make sure to avoid these mistakes.
And that's what I mean. It's like, it's less of failure is not an option, and more of failure is not a word in my vocabulary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Failure is not acknowledged as a possibility. You know what I mean? I don't know. There's just something, I feel like failure is not an option is almost too cliche sometimes, and that there's something more powerful that really drives that concept of like, you just like at no point did you think you failed, because life is a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Yeah.
You just didn't stop.
There's definitely moments like you're like, hey, what the hell did I just fucking do, man? I was like,
yeah,
I'm like, I had a suite in the Redskins stadium. I had this. Can I say Redskins? I don't know if I can say Redskins anymore. Who knows, man? But I mean,
what are they now, anyways?
I don't know. I didn't stop. 2008 was a great year to use that as a reason of sorry, I can't renew my tickets anymore. You guys can't win a game and I can't pay the bill. Figure it out. But yeah, man, I mean, I love talking to entrepreneurs because I think we get this idea like, okay, so this is not the way it's working. This is not the way it's working. What's the way it's going to work?
Right. Yeah.
Just like you said, like you first started with Facebook. That didn't work. You didn't just toss your hand up and say, okay, I'm just going to be a full-time loan officer.
Yeah.
Like your brain kept thinking, like, what's the next, where do I make this thing happen? Where is that secret tunnel? Where is that secret, you know what I mean? There's a
Yeah.
way around this. I just can't see it yet.
Yeah.
And that's that spirit that I'm talking about.
Amen. Well, and the beautiful thing is most times there's not one, right? There's not one secret path there.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of them, and you just have to find yours.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. So you said something in our little thing there that I keyed on. You use the word monkey brain. So
Yeah.
monkey brain is normally people who meditate and do yoga.
Yeah.
So talk me through this, because obviously I recognize the word monkey brain because I'm heavy into meditation, right?
Yeah.
I start my morning off with about 30 to 40 minutes of meditation and that kind of stuff. And I just started doing this about 3-4 years ago. So it's not like I've been doing this for 30 years. How
Yeah.
about you? I mean, is that something that you're doing also?
Yeah, I'd say I'm earlier in my journey than that. I've read a lot. I've Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty.
Mhm.
Why Buddhism is True by Robert Wright. Couple books like that I've read and used. Like, I basically, for the last year and a half, 2 years, I would say I've applied the mindfulness
Mhm.
and like moments of meditation within my day to day, and it's made a massive difference.
Yeah.
I off and on attempt to go periods of time of like dedicated 15 minutes, 25 minutes to start, right?
Yeah.
But I've fallen off that bus quite a few times. But it is something that I try to like just live by in my day to
Yeah.
day, and take those moments where I realize my brain's been going a million miles an hour all day to just, okay, let's just stop. Let's just
Yeah.
focus on my breathing for a couple minutes here.
Well, in
Yeah.
all fairness, I mean, the first time I ever meditated was 1989, spring of '89. So it took me almost 30 years of trying before it became a practice.
Yeah.
But then today, I couldn't even imagine like not doing it.
Yeah,
Like,
that was my question for you, is what is that? I mean, can you remember 3-4 years is obviously a long time. Can you remember like the instant or the point in time where you felt like, oh wow, this is making a difference. This is making a
yeah,
difference.
I could really feel it. I think so. I know, like in 2018, I really started like focusing in on it. Like there was something calling me, like slow down. Like, you know what I mean? Something was just happening inside of me, and I felt like the world was going too fast. And
Amen.
I always say that the universe is trying to speak to us. We just have to silence ourselves so we can hear it. And I literally felt like the universe was trying to speak to me at that time. And I was a divisional VP for a pretty large company, and but I was just unhappy. Like, and there was no reason to be unhappy. Like, if you looked at my life and you read my book and you look at like where I'm at in 2018, you're like, dude, seriously, you've come like you rebounded. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I felt like I was on this different road now that I just didn't want to go back to that same road that I was on that took me to 2008.
Hmm.
And so I began searching, right? And once you begin searching, that's when all these answers start coming from the universe, right? Because it's like, and one of the answers was slow down and start meditating. So I literally started by the way, Michael, it was literally, I said to myself, if I can do 1 second of no thought, and that's where it all started. Let me just do 1 second of no thought. And I would sit there, try to have 1 second of no thought. And that's how the whole journey started in 2018,
Wow.
to where it became like, okay, now I'm going to work on my breathing. Now I want to get a coach. Now I got this Insight Timer app, and I'm using this on a daily basis. I'm connecting with people around the world. I'm talking more, and then it's like just becomes part of your life. Is like, wow, like I can go through life. It doesn't mean you don't have bad moments. Of
Yeah.
course, it's life, dude. It's like things are happening, and your instinct is still there after 50 plus years. You're going to react the way just because I've been doing this for 3-4 years doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
thing is like the yo-yo, you know what I mean? And you come back a lot quicker to it because you say, okay, my intention was this today. I want to stay
Right.
grounded. So like this podcast, 2 years ago, I had no idea what a podcast was. And then all of a sudden, like this year, we're ranked number 10 out of 1,800 mortgage podcast.
Awesome.
That's a direct link to the meditation.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like I can see those linkage now. And I give credit to where it's due. You know what I mean? And I understand that I just get to be lucky enough to be behind the microphone. That's it.
Right. Right.
So
That's amazing. That's amazing because that is the one thing that I feel like, as you were talking, that I've identified with lately is like feeling like my day, like, or feeling like I'm out of control of my reactions
mhm,
when when I've let too much time pass without that, like,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
when I let too much time pass and too much shit is happening during that time, like my blood, I can almost like feel my blood pressure elevating, and
Yeah.
so like what you're talking, like that would be exactly what I would hope and expect to get out of like a more dedicated
Yeah.
practice, would be like being able to come back to that quicker, or recognize those moments that I'm getting away from that quicker.
I used to think people were crazy that talk about gratitude. Like they say, "Oh, I'm so grateful. I'm like, shit, this is usually not on Facebook. You know what I mean? This is like some emoticon or whatever on Facebook, man. Like, get over yourself." And
Yeah,
then all of a sudden, like today, I'm like, dude, I'm so grateful. Like I can get in my car and drive. You know what I mean? I can have a glass of water. Like this is things that people in other parts of the world don't have.
yeah,
And all of a sudden, when you start having gratitude for that, the energy you get from gratitude, then you start taking it outside your mat, outside your yoga sphere, outside your meditation room, and you
yeah.
start sharing that energy, man. And it's the most amazing thing the way people react to it. And it's
Oh yeah.
not like it was 3-4 years ago in my life. But dude, this is about you, man. Got to get back to your story.
Hey, I'm soaking
They
this
turned the tables on me
this
last
fuck out of
week,
it.
man. They turned the tables on me last week because John and our co-host Madison, who's not here today, they read the book and they wanted to ask questions about the book. So I literally I took 35-40 minutes of questions last week. So I don't want to take over the show myself. This is about you, Michael. But the last part of my questions for you is I really want to dig into this empower, right? Because I read about it and it's interesting, right? I think what you're doing is obviously you're on the right track to help loan officers, but I want you to explain like what made you think that empower could have an impact, right? Empower and impact. What could have
Yeah.
that? Why it's so beneficial to LOs who are utilizing you, and how many LOs do you got nationwide right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just I think the moment that I realized the level of impact it could have is the same moment that I decided I was going to start my own thing, was when I had multiple people in my office that had witnessed the come up, that weren't interested in talking about it before they saw the success with it, that were now like, yo, I'll pay you to do this shit for me. And it was so it was like knowing that, and then I would say there was another moment of realization, probably like a year in, where we probably had like 30 to 40 loan officers as clients at that point. And I started to notice something, which is that like the loan officers that were most successful with our system were loan officers that shared some of those personality traits about me that made me not so great at working with realtors, but
Okay.
really, really good at taking care of our borrowers, right?
Yeah.
Like really good at taking care of the borrowers and doing the right thing. And when I realized that, when I realized like, holy shit, there are a lot of people that don't deserve to be getting business right now that are getting business because they do better at shaking hands and kissing babies. and that and that consumers are usually really good bullshit detectors, and so the best people with consumer direct marketing are, you like in today's day and age, are the most genuine raw people that
Yeah.
you can meet. And as soon as I like had that realization of like, holy shit, I'm serving people like me that want to serve other people on the level that I want to serve other people,
Yeah.
and know that they can, if we just take care of this part of their business for them. I think that's the point. When I saw that is when I was like, okay, this like almost like a renewed commitment to making Empower like bigger than a mortgage lead gen company.
So I mean, you basically built your own tribe. That's what I'm hearing you say. I mean, you found
Yeah,
like-minded people, right, that were high on that D scale, right, of the assessment, right,
yeah,
that were really good LOs, but may not have been as good at shaking hands and that social exercise that we do sometimes, right?
exactly.
So
Yeah.
are are you able to like see the results? Are you monitoring? Are you seeing like indicators of how well they do on what using your system versus other systems?
Yeah, 100%. So, comparative is always tough, because, um, most people won't compare their results to what their actual results were over here. Like a lot of people don't track their numbers good enough to know, or whatever.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, like we met like our number one indicator of how well we're doing is going to be retention, obviously, right? How long are clients staying on board? We're not cheap, so to have our average retention be like 13 months as a
Okay.
marketing agency is a big deal. So we measure and stuff like that, but then obviously we're measuring lead conversion. But then again, what we found is like most lead gen companies are full of shit when they say that people convert at 5% or whatever. Like like our best lead converters are converting these leads at like 3%. And we do really, 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 really well. And we help them button up everything in their phone. Like for people to say that they're getting 5% with this lead source or whatever, it's garbage, right? And so
when you use the word convert, because this is a key word that is sometimes you got to get different definitions, right? So at least from what I've seen, right? And I'm not a CD guy, by the way, just for the record. I'm a retail guy. You know what I mean? I'm involved in some CD channels, but I am not. I couldn't even call 5 people in a day, much less 90 or 110, man. Right? But the word convert, what does that mean to Michael McAllister? What does that mean?
Closed loan.
So you're talking about 3% closed loans for when people are using your Empower funnels.
Our best clients, right?
Your best clients, the guys who are really drilling down every day, not letting the borrower off the hook, taking the application as quickly as possible, blah 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 blah, paying for appraisals, all that kind of stuff, right?
And then obviously you got to have a little bit of cooperation from like your product mix and your and what programs you offer or what credit score you can go down to, etc. I mean, those that have more options are going to convert at a higher rate. But just like any mortgage loan officer, you have your trade-offs of like, where's it worth it to invest my time? Like we have loan officers that have been on board for 2 years plus that have never done better than 1% inside of a 4-month window. But it doesn't matter because like it works for them. They use that. They still are ROI positive. They're using that deal to secure realtor relationships or solidify relationships. They're a broker getting paid 2 points or whatever the situation is. Everybody's got a different situation. And so we pride ourselves in finding like what best situates for that individual LO, what the best balance of drilling down, trying to get as much conversions as possible versus cherry picking your low hanging fruit and letting some of your other marketing do work. We try and find that balance for every loan officer we work with.
Yeah, that's interesting because I do appreciate the honesty on that, because it does feel like certain times when we get calls from different people, they're like, oh, but Fab, I'll give you 7%, I'll give you 8%. And then when you ask them the question of conversion, right? Oh, well, we're talking about the guy who'll go from a phone call to an application. We don't know what his credit score is going to be. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, I don't need applications. I need closed loans because closed loans is when we get paid.
Right.
And if I just take an application, I take 3 applications a day, that does nothing for me. They don't close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I will say that like on the consumer direct side, because most of the lead pool is going to be the same group of people, like most leads are generated the same way, at least leads that are worth buying. Like if they're generated on Facebook, like don't fucking waste your time. But most leads that are sold through vendors that have good reputations or reasonably good reputations are generated the same way. And so what we looked at and what we figured out pretty early on, again, looking at Quicken Loans, we secret shopped Quicken Loans. We did this all the time. What we found out was like, their comp plan doesn't compensate their loan officers based on closed loan volume. At least as of like a year ago, the last time we talked to a loan officer that worked there, they were getting comped on the number of TRID packages they send out, basically.
Interesting.
Number of complete applications. So why? Like, why would Quicken Loans do that? If for any other reason than to make sure that their loan officers are not trying to like gatekeep the application, get as many 1003s as possible, because more 1003s means more closed loans.
Got it.
Right. So it's way more a matter of like designing your processes and your workflows around making sure that you can do those money producing activities that may require a higher volume than through referral channels, right? Initial conversations, application reviews, etc. Having good workflows and processes around making sure that those things aren't taking too much of your time.
Yeah. No, I think, look, I mean, people like Quicken, Rocket, whatever they're called today, you know what I mean? And some other CD channels, companies that I'm aware of, they have a lot of metrics and information that we don't have.
Exactly.
But once again, I credit you because you're doing something that I think other people should look at, which is, why am I going to reinvent the wheel? Let me just mimic them, and I can scale this bitch up if I need to.
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't take a lot of brains to figure that one out, brother. But sometimes the simplest ideas are the best. and that
Yeah.
I'm seeing you do. So, last question, Michael, and I know we're coming close to the end, but this is the last question. You
Yeah.
are late 20s, 28. Where do you see Empower LO in the next, 10 years? I mean, like you're coming up on, let's say 40, right?
Yeah.
At that point, I mean, is this still, you're going to be passionate about this, or is this something that's, blown up so high that you're moving on to something different? What do you think?
Yeah. I think for me, it's dependent on where the industry goes. Like, as long as I feel like we have a shot to make a difference in where this industry is headed, like, I'm going to be all in. There's just like, I know myself enough to know that I'm passionate because I'm a passionate guy, not
Mhm.
because I found this magical thing that I happen to be really passionate about. Right. So as long as I feel like my actions like can correlate with the desired outcome in the context of this, then I'm going to be in it. So for me, that means what we were talking about earlier, as far as the direction of, consumer direct and the market share that they're taking from retail, and where is the retail LO headed, et cetera. Like, we're going to keep fighting until that battle is lost, essentially, is where
Yeah.
I'm at with this.
Yeah, that's awesome, brother. Well, look, man, I wish you well. Serious business. I enjoyed this conversation. Would love to
Amen.
have you back on the show some in the future, so we can find out how Michael's doing in the next few years, and keep in contact with us, brother. Seriously. So, once again, thank you for being on Laugh, Lend, and Eat. JP, man, get us out of here, brother.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Laugh, Lend, and Eat, the podcast. You can now enjoy Fabi's article, Laugh, Lend, and Eat, featured in the Vision magazine. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where each month we are giving away some swag for our lucky listener to show off. Thank you to our sponsors for their continued support, First Option Mortgage and One Good One Recruiting. And remember, you have to be something, so be kind.